Urgent revolution in Russia. Putin has played himself into a corner. The military is calling to overthrow the bunker dweller. Moscow is turning into hell. The dictator won't be able to escape from it. Ukraine is seizing victory for itself. Kyiv is gaining new allies. Syria is preparing to secure an advantage for Ukraine. Is it really now not only on the diplomatic stage but also on the front lines? You will be shocked. Trump has disgraced himself before the whole world. The American has gone mad. After this, power is taken right out of his hands. An epic moment. The USA is rushing into the abyss. Meanwhile, new shocking facts about Belarus have surfaced. Lukashenko is paving his way out. Will Minsk's military tourniquet now squeeze Moscow? All this in our episode Hellpoint. You won't believe it. Russia has rebelled against Putin. For the first time in the heart of Moscow, nothing but the truth is being spoken. Z-war correspondents, pro-Kremlin media, and even the mouthpieces of Putin's regime are crying out about the failure of the so-called special military operation, the beginning of a fierce coup. The regime is making a mistake. Russians are no longer holding back and are reminding Moscow of absolutely everything. Public outrage is now at full volume. The Kremlin offices are locked up. Putin is truly scared now. Is this really the end that everyone has been talking about? Let's watch.
Putin's ratings have started to decline.
What happened? Why is all this happening?
In just 1 week, the share of Russians who tend to trust Putin dropped by 5%, and over the course of a month by 9%. Even the propaganda media are writing about this.
All is going as planned. According to plan. According to plan. According to plan. Simply according to plan.
The Remezlo effect worked. He launched the idea into the information space that it was time to rise up against the Putin regime.
So you see what's happening right now. A complete breakdown and destabilization is underway. In other words, I can already see clear signs of the next system's collapse.
People don't want to see United Russia in power, a party that deliberately resorts to falsifications, which Durov himself has loudly exposed. In the comments under a poll on a Z-blogger's channel, where 80,000 people voted for United Russia, he wrote that 90% of them are bots.
Indeed, the overwhelming majority of votes for United Russia, about 90% in this poll, were added by bots from exotic countries. The bots have been blocked. The votes have not been deleted yet. Work on additional anti-bot features for polls is ongoing.
We need to fight not only against bots, but also against the Kremlin's puppets.
Everything is going according to plan.
Bloggers from Russia are already openly stating that the special military operation is not going according to the plan that Putin always talks about.
The 5th year of the special military operation. Kyiv in 3 days?
Assault troops are already declaring war on the Kremlin, realizing that they are expendable, while officials and their families are living their best lives. Soon they'll say that the Ministry of Defense is lying, talking about conspiracy theories.
While our soldiers are dying, they're over there, sucking up to the Americans for visas, chatting away. The spirit of anchorage. These are deliberate criminal orders aimed at grinding down our army in a war they seem to be dragging out on purpose.
The Russians who enlisted by signing military contracts soon came to realize they had struck a dark bargain with the devil himself for an endless war.
It's impossible to leave the army here, to leave the armed forces, no matter how much anyone might want to. And why we're being treated like we're the worst kind of scum, I have a big question about that.
The Kremlin, in collusion with the Ministry of Defense, has doomed its people to eternal slavery under fire. Propaganda remains silent. Solovyov blames the West. Simonian claims Ukraine will be defeated in 3 days. Meanwhile, ports and oil refineries are burning all across Russia.
No one is talking about what just happened in Oust, and Primorsk. In reality, we are talking about the massive scale of widespread destruction that has been caused by these Ukrainian drones. Silence.
Even Kalashnikov now admits that the armed forces of Ukraine are winning the war, while Russia is losing more and more.
Well, these are the kind of grim events we're seeing. You see, drone attacks are intensifying, which of course, in the armed forces of Ukraine, what I was afraid of, this is exactly what has happened. Now, strikes have been carried out on the ports through which petroleum products are exported, Ust-Luga and Primorsk in the Leningrad region. And as reported by Reuters, both Primorsk and Luga have halted their operations there. This is a very serious blow to, in general, our economy and budget.
Oil exports from the Russian Federation plummeted by 40% immediately after the strikes on the ports in the Leningrad region. The Kremlin is running out of funds for the war, and there's nowhere to get them from.
It's the 5th year of Ukraine's demilitarization, yet their drones, you see, are still coming and striking.
While the good drones of the Ukrainian armed forces are destroying Russian military-industrial plants and fuel depots all across Russia, on the front lines, Russian commanders are personally helping to finish off the world's second army.
We still don't have a unified personnel registry. I mean, not in terms of payments, there are plenty of issues with payments too, but in terms of, for example, when a man signed a contract, when he underwent training, how many days, which unit when he was killed went missing, and so on. If he disappeared, or let's say there is still no information about him, he is still counted as an active rifleman and someone is receiving money for him.
Another Z-blogger, Maxim Klimov, complains about chaos in Putin's army, complete lawlessness and corruption. Salaries are allocated from the budget of the Russian Federation, which feed the command staff.
Nothing has been done regarding documentary support, organizing searches, and so on.
There is no trust, only anger. While they are at the front, their relatives are being robbed.
So, buddy, go to war. Fight for us. And in the meantime, your sister and mother, left without you and with just one cow, their only source of sustenance, will break into their yard and kill their cow right in front of them.
More than 30,000 people have signed a collective complaint against the slaughter of animals addressed to Putin and the Russian government.
I think we all need to come together somehow, figure things out, and make it clear to the authorities that if things keep going this way, the authorities themselves won't last much longer. No amount of blockades or police will save them from this.
An epidemic of foot and mouth disease, an extremely contagious and dangerous illness, began in Russia back in February. The authorities are carefully concealing the fact of the epidemic to avoid a ban on meat exports to other countries, hiding behind claims of a Western conspiracy.
The Anglo-Saxons certainly don't like our country, and I understand that we can expect any kind of treachery from them of any sort. And in order to prevent the disease from appearing in Sverdlovsk Oblast, we realize that it could be brought in because no one has yet explained to us how it is that outbreaks of the disease suddenly appeared so evenly across the country.
Even the staunch patriot Kashovarova understands that things are getting dangerous.
The situation is getting worse every day. Every step is wrong and looks like a mockery of the people. Soon they'll make us record videos thanking them for blocking Telegram and cutting off communications, thanking them for exorbitant taxes, thanking them for the recycling fee, thanking them for bringing in migrants and giving them apartments. Donetsk, Luhansk, get ready to thank them for water that doesn't exist. Zaporizhia, you'll be thanking them for property seized in favor of the governor's people, thanking them for the money stolen during the construction of fortifications, thanking them that we haven't been imprisoned or killed yet.
In Russian cities, people have already taken to the streets to protest the effective blocking of messengers and the slowing down of the internet, but the security forces managed to disperse the crowds. But it seems this is only the beginning. The trigger has already been pulled. A difficult and dangerous year awaits Russia in 2026. Putin's regime will fall, and the security forces will no longer be able to suppress the people's anger.
Ukraine is entering the place where the future of the region will be decided. While the world is watching the front lines, Kyiv is already playing a role in the Middle East. A fateful meeting in Syria, negotiations between delegations, and immediately a trilateral format with Turkey. This is no longer just diplomacy, this is a new level of influence. This makes Moscow squirm, prompting yet another information attack. They claim that Ukraine's achievements mean nothing. Putin miscalculated and once again proved he is powerless. More on the decisive shift in the balance of power ahead. Russia is losing the Middle East. Zelensky in Syria. Ukraine is taking over influence in these regions. Syria is a country where Russia has dominated for years. Military bases, political influence, and control over the region.
A group of Tu-22 M3 aircraft carried out a flight from an airfield in the Russian Federation to the Khmeimim air base.
And against this backdrop, an unexpected visit. Volodymyr Zelensky visits Syria for the first time and meets with the Syrian leader.
This particular diplomatic move, President Zelensky's visit to Syria, is so extraordinarily significant and impactful that the Kremlin still doesn't quite know how to comment on it. In my personal opinion, this tells us that the Kremlin is absolutely caught off guard and utterly stunned by this development.
But that's not all. In Damascus, in addition to the bilateral meeting, a trilateral meeting was also held with the participation of Ukraine, Syria, and Turkey.
President Zelensky flew to Syria on a Turkish plane, together with Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan. And the day before, there was a previously unannounced visit to Istanbul. And what did they discuss with Erdogan there? And why did Turkey help organize this visit to Syria? Well, it's a nightmare, a horror. It's just that, in my opinion, absolute panic inside the Kremlin about this happened.
The key emphasis is on security, economy, and cooperation.
We agreed to work for safety and development. We discussed the situation in the region and Russia's war against Ukraine. I am grateful for the support. There is great interest in exchanging military and security experience. We also touched on Ukraine's role as a reliable supplier of food products.
Ukraine offers its military experience primarily in combating drones and missiles gained during the war with Russia.
This significantly represents the emergence of Ukraine as an autonomous and influential independent player within the Middle East in general, especially given the complex and increasingly tough situation that has developed since the start of the full-scale war involving the United States, Israel, and Iran, and the surrounding regional tensions. When Iran starts launching its Shaheds in all directions, Ukraine's experience becomes so highly sought after, and suddenly Ukraine bursts, I'm not afraid to use this word, onto the international arms trade market.
But it was no less important that Russia was also discussed. Could it be that secret dialogues are taking place between Kyiv and Damascus against Putin? Or are these just scary stories being invented in Moscow itself?
The Kremlin itself may realize that the story with any dictator, including Putin, can turn out to be quite similar. When things start to heat up, it turns out that no one wants to support that dictator. And so, the understanding of what mechanisms are used for this, how it happens step by step, such a story can not only greatly upset the Kremlin, but literally frighten them.
But the Kremlin is already reacting negatively. Ukrainian trips to Middle Eastern countries are being called pointless there.
It was absolutely terrible, truly terrible. Well, it was quite terrible, but perhaps not quite as terribly terrible as it could have been.
The Kremlin has become active on several fronts at once. For their own audience, they claim that these Ukrainian trips mean nothing. And for the countries of the Persian Gulf, they say that Ukraine is supposedly useless and that only the Kremlin can help them. But where does such activity come from?
They're simply afraid of losing their influence in the Middle East for good. But in reality, they've already lost it, haven't they? Because the fact is that not only did they not help Iran, but they actually can't help Iran at all. Once again, Putin has shown that he can't do anything. And of course, after that, what kind of influence can they have in the Middle East? Well, pretty much none at all.
But Zelensky clearly ventured boldly onto Putin's turf. Just recall the Ukrainian president's trip to the United Arab Emirates on March 28th. One could only imagine Putin's fury. How could this be? Russia and the Emirates are supposed to be best friends.
Your Highness, dear friend, I am glad to see you again in Moscow and would like to warmly welcome both you and your distinguished delegation.
And these are no longer just random visits. This is a strategy. Ukraine is building a network of contacts in the Middle East. From Saudi Arabia, where agreements have already been signed, to Syria, where only words remain of Russian influence.
The strategy is quite powerful, isn't it? This is primarily because it is about engaging in extensive diplomatic efforts to persuade and win over those specific nations that have officially declared their neutrality in the ongoing and complex Russian-Ukrainian war, as these countries represent a crucial demographic in the global political landscape.
And while Russia is preoccupied with the war in Ukraine, Kyiv is playing a broader game. And it seems this cannot help but affect the master of the Kremlin.
It's obvious to anyone that personal interaction, a visit at such a high level, is much more effective than just some phone call. Especially with such a strange person who is absolutely inconsistent, illogical, and frankly slow-witted like Putin. Well, of course, the Kremlin is very concerned about this, just as it is concerned, in fact, about its influence in the world and specifically in the Middle East region.
And for Ukraine, such visits are nothing but beneficial. It's not just about reducing Russia's influence on the countries of the Middle East and the Persian Gulf, but also about something more, about personal achievements.
Accordingly, this, I would say, unexpectedly swift and highly strategic diplomatic tour of the Middle Eastern countries establishes an entirely fresh set of complex challenges. and puts Ukraine in a fundamentally new position. It is no longer acting as a mere petitioner who is constantly seeking financial assistance, nor as a petitioner for weapons, but on the contrary, it stands as a nation ready to share its unique experience in resisting dictatorship. And this is quite a remarkably courageous and strategically significant maneuver by Ukraine to take on these influential new positions on the global stage.
The Middle East is a region where Russia has traditionally tried to maintain its influence, but will it succeed now? Now Ukraine is becoming increasingly active in the region, and this series of visits is just the beginning. Kyiv is starting to play a new geopolitical game, leaving Russia, as often happens, further and further behind. Sensational! Trump has gone mad. The global community is sounding the alarm. Statements that make your eye twitch, and even more unpredictable decisions. The start of a large-scale purge in the government. The US president is going all in and removing those who tell him the truth to his face. The slogan, "America deserves better," is now being heard literally everywhere. America's allies are turning away. Trump is leading the country into an abyss. Is the political career of a once successful American really coming to nothing? Let's watch.
After these obscene remarks and threats on social media, some American politicians responded with concern and questioned the mental state of US President Donald Trump. Open the strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll live in hell. Former Republican Congresswoman and loyal Trump ally Marjorie Taylor Greene criticized the president's policy on X, where she wrote that Trump has simply gone insane.
The strait is closed because the US and Israel have started an unprovoked war against Iran, based on the same nuclear lies they've been spreading for decades, claiming that at any moment Iran could develop nuclear weapons. You know who actually has nuclear weapons? Israel. They are more than capable of defending themselves without the US going to war with them, killing innocent people and children, and paying for it. Trump's threats to bomb power plants and bridges harm the Iranian people, the very people Trump claimed he was liberating.
Taylor Greene had been loyal to Trump for many years, but in July of last year, she criticized the strikes on Iran and stated that this was a departure from the campaign promise to put America first and avoid costly wars abroad. After the resignation of Attorney General Pam Bondi, Trump is planning major reshuffles in the cabinet, as he is increasingly frustrated with the political consequences of the war with Iran. Reuters reports this, citing its sources in the White House.
Any potential reshuffles could serve as a reset for the White House ahead of a challenging political period. The 5-week war has led to rising gasoline prices, a drop in Trump's approval rating, and increased concerns about the consequences for Republicans ahead of the November midterm elections. Reuters?
He believes that his decisions are perfect, that they are correct, and that the lack of results is not due to bad decisions, but sabotage, that someone is undermining him. Tulsi Gabbard also wants to fire the head of national intelligence because he doesn't like the intelligence reports. He doesn't like that they are pessimistic, that they are somehow not right, that he says one thing, and then the intelligence comes out and says, well, you know, the Normandy Strait won't be unblocked anytime soon.
Several sources report that Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence in the Trump administration, and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick are among those who could potentially be dismissed. But this is only because they speak about real things and simply do not agree with what Trump is proposing. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer claims that what Trump writes resembles the tirade of a deranged madman.
He threatens to commit war crimes and alienates allies. That's his essence. But that's not our essence. Our country deserves better.
Trump promised isolationism in America, vowed to end foreign policy conflicts, and focus on domestic renewal. Instead, he brought global issues to the forefront, from threats to Greenland to starting a war with Iran. Now, his policies have led to the United States losing allies.
It's like in school when some bully says, either do as I tell you or I'll bully you, call you names, and smack you on the head. Trump, since he has been like this his whole life from school, and even now, this approach worked and still works for him with his inner circle in the White House. He decided that it would work on a global level as well. But now this is already leading to a situation where, at first, the Europeans couldn't recover, couldn't understand what the Americans' intention was, what the plan was, where, beneath these layers of idiocy, the politics were hiding.
Trump's behavior and manner of communication are leading to the fact that he has fewer and fewer supporters, even among those closest to him. He does not accept any other point of view. It can only be the way he says and no other way. Many politicians and analysts say that, from a strategic standpoint, the war with Iran has failed. And all of this could even lead to the impeachment of Donald Trump.
At this very moment, Lukashenko has finally been caught by his mustache. The whole truth about the Belarusian defense industry. Minsk was unable to keep Putin's secret. These insider revelations are truly shocking. Pantsers and more are rolling off the assembly lines in batches for Moscow. Without these weapons, Putin's war would collapse in just a few hours. Lukashenko is already in the crosshairs. One decisive move and the valves of so-called allied support will be shut off. The Batka understands his end is near. Will he dare to abandon Russia now? Let's watch. The Kremlin's main satellite has once again found himself in the crosshairs because of his loyalty to his big brother.
President Putin has no relationship with anyone like he does with Belarus. It's only natural. We are allies.
Of course it's natural because Lukashenko has no other option. He can only serve Putin faithfully and loyally. It's no secret that since the start of the full-scale invasion, Belarus has become the Kremlin's main ally. There are simply no closer ties between these countries than in military affairs. Although Lukashenko denies this at every opportunity and claims that he is against the war,
we are absolutely and firmly against this war, especially all of our dedicated officers and every one of our brave soldiers.
But not against helping the Kremlin dictator. In fact, the Belarusian defense industry has shifted to a wartime footing. Since 2024, Belarus has been supplying Russia with chassis for the production of Panzer S-1 anti-aircraft missile and gun systems. The deliveries involve modernized platforms with armored cabins. They are used in the new version of the system according to a Belpol investigation. This is evidenced by...
This is a formal letter sent from the Open Joint Stock Company, known as the Shipunov Instrument Design Bureau, addressed specifically to the First Deputy General Director, the Honorable Citizen Mr. Golovachov. This document states that in accordance with a government contract under the State Defense Order, MZKT 79.30.312 chassis are to be supplied to the Russian Instrument Design Bureau for the Panzer S combat vehicles in batches of 6 units each in June, July, and August 2024.
In other words, this is not about export models or the latest modifications, but about an adapted version of the Panzer S for the Russian army. It is likely that part of the contract has already been fulfilled and the equipment is being used in the war against Ukraine.
This is a mobile system, and accordingly, without the chassis, the Panzer S-1 surface-to-air missile system essentially turns into a stationary installation, which can be easily destroyed by Ukrainian strike capabilities. Accordingly, it is a medium-range surface-to-air missile system. It covers key logistical and transportation facilities of the Russian Federation, forming the backbone of the layered air defense system around Moscow and the Moscow region. First and foremost, this is the Panzer S-1. S-1 shell.
According to the publication, the transition to the Belarusian chassis is designed to eliminate the technical shortcomings of previous versions of the armor.
Vladislav Butsko, Agent Erogwok. This is the problem of the Russian military industry in the first place. This is a failure in the moment and production of the air defense systems themselves and the corresponding air defense systems. Several key points: an outdated material and technical base, and the sanctions pressure from the United States and European partners on enterprises of the Russian military-industrial complex. Accordingly, an external factor is the strikes by Ukrainian drones, which are targeting Russian military-industrial enterprises involved in the production of air defense and missile defense systems.
The Belarusian defense industry is essentially working to meet the needs of the Russian aggressor. In addition to supplying hardware, armored vehicles from storage and weapons from regular units, Belarus has turned its factories into service centers for the Russian army.
The Belarusian military-industrial complex supplies the Russian Federation with components. About 80% of the exports from Belarusian defense enterprises go to the occupying country, so this is just one episode. The military-industrial complex of the Republic of Belarus is currently involved in carrying out capital repairs of armored vehicles, producing artillery shells, and accordingly training flight personnel at the Grodno base.
Lukashenko is trying to satisfy Putin's appetites without directly entering the war, understanding that doing so could cost him his position. For him, demonstrative loyalty to the Kremlin is a way to survive and maintain control over the country without participating in open hostilities.
The foundation of Lukashenko's policy is maintaining his personal regime and passing it on as an inheritance. Therefore, accordingly, the basis of his foreign policy vector is the so-called balance of power. That is, an attempt to appeal to all the key players on the world stage. I would also note that it is the People's Republic of China that views the Republic of Belarus as a springboard for military political advancement on the European continent.
But can Lukashenko play these roles for long? The self-proclaimed dictator is already looking for reliable partners besides Moscow. That's all from me for now. This was me, Darina Hutsakalo. Even more scorching news in our next broadcast. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you!